Hello, welcome everyone. So I have a special review here of, not so much a review, insight, because this is a deck that I wanted to learn more about, and this was handed down to me through Llewellyn after I made a request. And they surprised me in sending me this deck with the wonderful help of Maxine Miller, who is one of the co-creators of this deck, along with Christopher Penczak. This deck, as you can see, is the Magickal Botanical Oracle, Plants from the Witch's Garden. This just recently came out. It's literally fresh off the press. And this is a deck that is a first for me because I don't have a deck oracle that really emphasizes a lot of the botanical aspects of the herbs and the floras that are used in magic. So when I saw this deck and saw who the creators were, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be a kicking deck, because you have Maxine Miller with her Celtic Art Nouveau, very detailed lined images, merging with, you know, the spiritual force of Christopher Penczak. Many of you who know who is in the Wiccan community and has his temple for practitioners. To have these two creative people work together to create this deck, I was just like, yeah, let's see this. So, and I had the pleasure of meeting Maxine at the recent Newt's symposium about a month and a half ago, and some additional news. Maxine will be a guest on my channel. I'm very excited about this, and we're going to be talking about the deck and her background, from being a album cover artist from Los Angeles from the 80s and 90s, to where her practice and her magic has taken her to this current day. So watch out for that. You know, hit the notification bell, subscribe, so on and so forth, to take part and watch this discussion, ask questions about this deck. So there are quite a few herbal decks that are out on the market, and I've seen them, and they tend to be a little bit more direct, like here's a flower, here's a scientific name, and maybe the magical representation of that herb or flower. But this deck here, because of Christopher's connection with Mother Earth, and also Maxine's love for the botanical influences of herbs and whatnot, this deck I feel is very unique, and I hope this deck will reach people who want to explore the use of herbs and flowers in a more advanced practice. So the herbs featured in this deck, there's 33 cards, and they deal with everything from the elements of earth, air, fire, water. We also have the planetary symbols here that are mentioned on each of the cards, their influences for that card. There is also divinatory meanings, the plant meaning of each of these cards, so you know the properties and how to work with them in either banishing or attracting energy, and also for healing. So I feel this deck, with just 33 cards, it's a well-rounded deck, and you don't need a lot for an oracle to work with those kinds of elements when it comes to drawing and banishing energies. So let's just go right into it. I normally don't do reviews, but this deck I wanted to, because I'm really enjoying the energy that I'm feeling with this deck. And even when I got the box, when I unwrapped it and I opened it and I just saw and felt the box, like this is going to be a very a very powerful deck to work with. So with that being said, those of you who know, I like to leave the wrapping on some of the boxes here, so I don't get any oils or fingerprints on this, and especially this deck in particular, or this box, because it is all linen finished. So it has, can't focus too well, but you can maybe see a little bit here along the edging. It's all linen. You can probably hear it here on the box. And then we have some examples of cards here. The coloring, if you have a different color screen, this is like a nice light yellowy coloring to the box. So the box top and bottom, 2 pieces, all linen. So very nice. And yes, I already opened this. Okay, we'll get to the cards in a moment. We got the insert here with the black ribbon. Okay, which is also nice, is that we could take this insert out. This box is very nice. So I know some people, if they don't want to box their decks, they usually keep the boxes to put stuff in. This is one of those boxes that can be good for that. Maybe put herbs and anything botanical to hold the energy of this deck in this very box. Okay, so the book itself is thick. Everything, even the card stock, is heavier. Los Garabeto, whoever worked on the production of this deck, did things in a heavier, more sturdier fashion. Thicker box, nice quality linen stock for the box. This doesn't have a linen finish. It's pretty much like paper, but it's very flat. It's almost the same, but not as heavy weight of the cards that this book has. This is a little thicker. It has a little bit over 200 pages. We have the biographies of Maxine and Christopher here. I'm going to list their website so you can go and read more about them. And as I mentioned, Maxine will be a guest on my channel very soon. So we're gonna delve and explore into some of the specifics of how to work with this deck and how she got to this process in creating this deck in particular. So it's very straightforward. What I like here is we have the plates. Most of the cards are in black and white, and they're set against a nice warm color background. There are some cards that do have some touches of color running through it. I would love to see a little bit more color in this deck, but that's totally fine. But we see Maxine's own personal style throughout all of the images here. It's just, if you know Maxine Miller's work, you will recognize it. Just beautiful detail and nice mystical energy that she puts into her images. I love it. It's part of the reason why I bought the deck, because Maxine created it, and I was looking for investing in some of her artwork, and I think this is, for me, one of the ways that I can do this. So, for example, here with the pages, we have the word, the hemlock, the Latin name, botanical name for this, the planets that influence each plant, and also the element that will come associated with this. So here we have a combination of water, we have Venus and Saturn. Now, it doesn't really go into so much the astrological meanings of the planetary placements, but if you know a little bit about astrology, if you know about the planets, you can understand how those properties can come into play. So Saturn is all about discipline, restriction, time, limitations, and Venus is of beauty, it's of of personal care, investment into oneself. And so it's when you bring those two planetary meanings, there's more meanings for Saturn and Venus besides what I just mentioned, and also the influence of water. You can learn how to draw with those energies of the element and of the planets, and to bring it into the divinatory meaning of each of these plants. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have the magical meaning, okay, which basically is the magical interpretation of each of the herbs. And then we have, as you see here, plant spirit medicine. So how it can be, how it's used for medicinally, its toxicity, and what it's used for banishing or attracting. And then we have the meaning in a divinatory reading, when it's upright, and then we have the reverse meaning of it. And then there's an affirmation that is associated at the end, just one sentence for each of these herbs. So I haven't gone through the entire book. I've looked through the deck, and here's a camellia. Okay, so again, these are exploded views of the actual cards. So the cards are smaller, but because there's so much detail in Maxine's work, this is actually good to see a larger version of the plate in relation to the card, because then you can delve into some of the more minute details to further understand and feel the energy of each of these herbs and flowers. Got belladonna, so on and so forth, and the planets and the Latin name for it. So it's a good book. I like that it is not, even though it's a little bit over 200 pages, that's more so because of the stock. It's a thicker stock, so the pages for this book make the book look thicker, but it really isn't for 33 cards. And so at the beginning of the book, the introduction more or less talks about Maxine's experience for creating this deck, and Christopher has some words as well as to how this deck came into formation for him. So I'm going to put this aside here. Okay, we're going to go through these cards. I'm going to grab a seat here. Not that you can see that. Alrighty. So, let's see how this is going to work. Alright. There we go. So, I'm going to bring these up to the camera, which may not be a good idea because I think the camera is going to struggle to focus. But, I may just make reference to the names of each of the cards, but I want you to just look at the detail that is coming from each of these cards. If it's going to, there we go. And again, we have the Latin name here on the bottom. I'll go even closer. Just beautiful work. Maxine, you rock. Work is just unbelievable. So when you go to Maxine's website, she has a whole bunch of prints, statuary pieces, some limited editions. So if you do like the styling of work, you may find something on her website to add into your practice. Okay, so here's the belladonna. Okay, against the black background. That's 2 right there, so there is a little bit of coloring. And yes, the back of the cards. This beautiful energy. I just love this. And I'll try not to be so overly like, oh, this is wonderful. But I like how this deck feels. Ooh. Let's get this focused. Gotta go more in the center. There we go. Look at this. And apologies for the shadow of the camera. Got the bleeding hearts, literally hearts that are dangling from her arms. And then we have the inset of what the bleeding heart looks like and the planetary properties. Mars, Sun, and fire energy. Okay, so there are some color throughout the deck, but not all of the cards have color. And that's something I think I'll ask her about, the selection of color on some of the cards. We have different fonts here as well. There's the Camilla. It's beautiful. Camilla Japonica. Let me see. Japonica, I think. And then we have the moon, Venus, and water. So the backs are all the same, so if you get a reverse, you'll know that it's a reversal when doing readings with this deck. Cannabis. Beautiful. All of these are like holding pieces of art with Maxine. A dandelion. Now there is, see here, there is a few symbols, a few little marks that show up on the bottom, not on, I think they're on all of the cards. Yeah, they are on all of the cards. I'm not quite sure what that is. Look at this dragon tree. In the book too, I'm going to just take a quick minute here. There is how to work with these cards, because this oracle deck is quite different, because we are dealing with plants, but we're also doing it in a divinatory way. So learning how to read with a deck that focuses on herbs. Like here we have the heart healing. These are spells that you can do, so this is great. You could do spell work with this. Readings for yourself, how to read with others. There is also the spreads. Now what's called Three Fates, Forest Crossing. So you can use this deck in many different ways, which is just, it's perfect. It's multifaceted, and I like a deck that can serve multiple purposes. There's Hellbore. So each of the cards have something very unique in its design. Socrates here on the bottom. And this is Conium Mac. I'm going to learn Latin after I work with this deck. Conium Maculatum. I think that's another way you can invoke the energy of each of these herbs and flowers, is by using their Latin name. It's wonderful. We have the snake. This again is henbane, which I believe is a toxic plant. Holly, the season that we are in right now. We are in the waning season, the Holly King until winter solstice, and then comes the Oak King. And here we see air. Oh, I'm sorry, fire, Venus, and Mars. I don't want to try and pronounce these names also. There's the ivy. Ivy's one of my favorite cards, more beautiful ones that I'm drawn to, the imagery and the energy. Okay, lavender. Which I like here, it's in a fan motif. You have to spend time when you get a deck like this, because there is a lot, as I mentioned, love, lies, bleeding, information to see in something like this. Here's our mandrake, which is the cover that we have here, who is on the cover. And again, not all of them, but some of the cards have the inset of the actual plant right off to the side, so you can see what it looks like. Moonflower. So when you get this deck, like I said, it's multifaceted. You could do it for spell work and for readings for people. Here's our oak cane, which will come in after our winter solstice. And there we have the inset for the oak tree. Ah, beautiful. You get those touches of color into the black and white of this, some of these images, as I do like. Alright, it is just not focusing. This one's one of my favorite rows for obvious reasons, but I embrace this card even more so because it's following the Tree of Life and the Sephiroth from Kether all the way down to Malkuth, Earth, Pluto. This is a card that I'll probably have standing nearby when I start focusing and practicing through the Tree of Life in relation to the tarot. This is my favorite. We have Rue. Herb of Grace. There we go. I'm moving slowly through this deck for technical reasons with the camera, but also so you could spend time and look at the energy and detail. Sorcerer's Violet. There we go, a little bit more color. This is another one. So I can move closer there. Yeah, got the bees. And some of the finer details here, the sunflower and the petals. Again, we have the planetary properties here, influences and elements. We have like the sun god right here. Whoop. There we go. That's beautiful. The chariot. Chariot being flown by bees. None touch me with impunity. This is thistle. Alrighty. A little frustrating there with that. Okay. Thorn apple. Pentacle in the center. So let me know what you think about this. Again, this deck I feel is going to be something to really look out for in the community, because it crosses over with divination and hedge witch work and green witch magic for banishing work. Excuse me. And for attracting vine. Love those splashes of color. Here we have willow, one of my favorite trees. Soft, strong energy is what I think of when I see a willow tree. Its large trunk, but the wisps of the willows are just so strong, and they're very, very malleable. How they move with the wind. Wolfsbane. We have some rune details. I think there was one or two other cards that had that. Got the full moon rising here. Okay. Wormwood. And then again we have the inset there of what plant of wormwood looks. There we go. So I have not done a reading as of now with this with this deck, because as I mentioned, this deck is multifaceted, so there's many different ways to take this deck. I think it can also do moon magic with this deck, because you could still work with the properties of that plant. And then we have the triple goddess there. We have Mars and Venus for you, the lemniscate, infinity, Saturn, and the toxicity here of the skull and crossbones of you. Showing the potency of each of these cards on their own. And then here we have the culmination of the mandrake and the angel's trumpet. So when these two watch over the garden, they are very powerful, masculine and feminine energy. Just beautiful work, and we have the coloring there of some of the flowers that have been seen in this deck. And then we have ladybug and a butterfly right there. So it's like we almost go full circle, right? We see the back side of the deck here, and then we see the ending here. It's like the universe. It's like the world. Everything gets culminated. This is what's inside the witch's garden. These plants, and then some, and the influence that it has for doing work with these particular plants. I would suggest, if you are new to working with this kind of energy, I'll put this back here in order, do some research, okay? As I mentioned, this deck goes through, a paragraph or so of the meaning of each of the herbs. We have here for poppy, and its history. But if you really want to know more about working with some of these other particular herbs that are featured in this deck, do go online, get a book that focuses on herbal work. We have Scott Cunningham, who is the godfather, I feel, of books that deal with herbal magic and essential oils. from the 70s. Even though it's from that time, that's almost a staple for those who have been doing magic and working in the craft for at least the last 15-20 years. That is almost hands down a goes-to book. There are some other books that are available as well to work with, but I think it's good to get something that is comprehensive so that you can understand the different perspectives of how to work with Angel's Trumpet or the belladonna. Belladonna is highly toxic. And knowing fully, the positives and negatives, and understanding how to work with these properties in many different ways. Okay, so primarily black and white. Fly agaric. I don't know if I even saw this earlier. Got the mushrooms there. And we got the rabbit. Or the hare. Again, all the properties. This looks like it is toxic. This crossbones. Yeah, so these are toxic. I thought it was only in the book, but on the cards, when you see the skull and crossbones, that's a sign that this is a plant to handle very carefully. So that's it, just a short but sweet overview of the Magickal Botanical Oracle. I'm going to enjoy working with this and exploring with this deck, because I want to use it in ways separately for magic work, but also to bring it into the tarot. I like to see tarot-wise, oracle-wise, how it reads. So this is again by Maxine Miller and Christopher Penczak. This is produced through Los Scarabeo. You can get this in Llewellyn. I am going to put the link on it, and I highly encourage those who are working with hedge witch practices or working with herbs and bringing it into your magical practice and also into the tarot. This deck, I feel, is quite supreme in what it has to offer, because it goes into an advanced form of working with these herbs when it comes to doing magic work specifically. All right, so there you have it, Magickal Botanical by Maxine Miller and Christopher Penczak, Plants from the Witch's Garden. Let me know what you think about this deck, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Again, I will be having Maxine Miller as a guest on my channel very soon, so hit the notification bell, subscribe, so on and so forth. Keep an eye out for it, so that when I have her as my guest, you can meet her and have questions to ask her regarding working with this deck and some of the herbal elements that are offered here. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you all soon. Hopefully when Maxine's going to be joining me, or for one of my live readings and for other content that I have. Alright, have a wonderful week, everyone, and I will be seeing you soon.